Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case. Now, the main theme of today is talking about phone pings and where they could be, but more so the importance behind it and, where it needs to be focused on as for the ones that are present, coming and going. I just want to make it very clear so no one's misinformed. This video is not revealing the phone pings, but talking about it as part of a discussion. I just thought I'd mention that now so no one feels like the time has been wasted. But with equal importance, I want to take a look at Jack Newton as well, his mentality, his mindset, information, the theme of second, third-hand information, but is it wrapped up in a way of third-person language from the horse's mouth? Or is there another source but identity unknown of? We're going to go about the themes there, but that's later. So be sure to stick around if you're interested in hearing that. I mean, there's been some titles and little nicknames along the way for different people, and to break through the darkness, a bit of lightheartedness can help, and maybe we can put that into play later. But nevertheless, welcome to anyone that is watching this live premiere right now. Feel free to share your thoughts and opinions in the live chat box on the right hand side. And by the end of this video, if you want to drop a comment, leave one below under the video. Your thoughts, add-ons, any questions that will help spread awareness of this video and help keep the case alive. If you want to, down below there'll also be a pinned message with additional links by me if you want to support this channel. And if you want to keep up with the latest videos of mine, you've missed out on previous ones, just the top right corner, there'll be an I symbol. Click up there, and then you'll be able to find the full playlist and the other, videos and whatnot. Today, I'm probably going to do a bit of a map analysis, just to visually get an idea of the area, but also talk about the problems and issues faced with phone pings, and whether I talk directly with my face or I can talk whilst going over the visual map. I'll do what works best. But I think what needs to be acknowledged first of all is, I guess, the performance of last night's video, the actual theme and topic, where I give some afterthoughts of what I think. So what I did last night, and if you haven't already, check it out, it'll be up there top right. It was a condition of Noah Presgrove's shorts. The reason why I did that video is because some people wanted it explaining in depth as for the importance behind it. So that's what I did, kind of viewer requested. But it was also to shine light on a very important factor and theme in the case. It's an important variable that needs to be measured and analysed besides the typical official autopsy, the results of Noah's injuries and damage to his body, more so upper. What about the shorts? They will tell a story, right? And whilst in the autopsy, it made reference to the white shorts only, because they were what were found at the scene when the ME and whoever else came on down. But earlier, there was an alternative story from what Caden witnessed, the black shorts being present. So obviously, that needs to be talked about, shine light on. Now, if the official autopsy and ME did not make reference to the black shorts or the condition of them, how did we know? Partners in true crime who had access to them somehow. And I think there was another side question by a viewer saying, were the shorts washed or not when Dalen received them? Supposedly, the shorts were washed before handed back to the Presgrove family members, such as Dalen Presgrove. The one that handed the shorts over to Dalen was Jack Newton, supposedly. So whether it was Jack directly or another person that decided to wash the shorts, it does make you think why, if it had evidence on, unless it was already taken in by police and then processed onwards after. I don't actually know. Well, as to say, if it still applies now, or it did before, where Noah's phone, his new one, was taken in the hands of police, were Noah's black shorts ever taken in by police and processed, or never treated as evidence? Does anyone know? Because they seem to tell a story and have evidence on from what partners in true crime said due to the condition of them. So I did my video reiterating it and adding on my additional thoughts. The reason why it's a little bit problematic is because it's such an important factor. It has been neglected. Maybe not forgotten by most, but neglected. It's not talked about as much, but it should be, and it could help. And yet the performance, the output was absolutely disappointing. Credit to everyone that showed up last night. That was all good, healthy, live. But, you know, onwards, when people are watching on catch up, it was really, really underwhelming. One of the worst performing videos in a long time. And yet this was one of the most important critical videos in a while too, which is kind of ironic. Does this tie on with Lisa's comment? Not quite, because I looked statistically, about roughly 400 people watched the video. To what extent, as for how long, but 400 people clicked and watched the video out of 3,000 to 4,000 people out there in which the video was shown to. And when I say shown to, that means if you're on YouTube and you get a recommended video on the screen, homepage, library section, and then if you make the choice to click on it, that counts as one view. If you don't click on it and ignore it, well then it doesn't count. So it gives you a percentage. So obviously the percentage of people that did watch, 400 out of 4,000 people, it's very, very underwhelming. And it makes you question, why is that the case? Do people not want to learn? Do people not want to pick up on these important details and maybe never asked before questions as well? Because a video like this earlier on, when I first started covering the case, it probably would have reached those numbers. So that's what leads me to believe, and yet another prediction, and there's going to be a couple of them today, another prediction proven by me. A stamina war in which people, some may give up, others just get bored. The rest, responsibilities, doing other things, fair enough. Time of the season, that's another factor. There's many to measure. But all in all, because the case has gone on for quite some time, it's more fresh for me because I've not been around as long as other people. Well, not in a disrespectful way, but the die-hard fans, maybe not so much fans, supporters, or people that are passionate about the case and the community, and those from afar will stick around no matter what, so credit to them. But even if people don't want to accept it, it is a stamina war, especially the longer it goes on for. And not everybody can keep up. Not everybody wants to. So out of the 4,000 people, not as many with stamina as much now. Obviously disappointing because very important discussions. So people will miss out. People will fall behind in the food chain, but there's nothing I can do about it. What I will say is if humans in the future come at me, have a go, or demand for answers, clarity, to catch up on everything, don't expect me to roll out the red carpet, because the videos are here, the playlist is present, look, listen, learn, do the research, you'll be able to catch up eventually, right? I can do like little quick catch-ups with some questions and stuff, but you know, there's a level of time put into doing this stuff, and if people come along down the line wanting a fast track, they can get fucked, right? Because I noticed that within the Kenny Veach case over time, where people just waddle on in and demand, I want to be at the top of the list, I want to be at the top to learn everything. It doesn't quite work like that. There's a level of patience, and not everybody has that understanding, isn't that right? But what I will say is, as for this case in general, I'd say it's just the general community and people online that have, not just me, but a lot of other people, such as on Facebook and even on Reddit, have single-handedly kept this case alive. And as for anyone else, the important people, whatever they're doing, it's just not been surface level in the public eye to know what's really happening. It's just really dead, right? When I compare it to other cases, this is really dead, really dry. And yet, would this case be considered more popular than the Dylan Rounds case? I don't know. The Dylan Rounds one was just as incompetent, if not worse. And there was visible signs of incompetence, which at first may have been misguided and seen as corruption, but more so incompetence. But the family, the parents made it clear as to the issues by the hands of the police, the neglect, lack of care, and much more. So the general public heard about it, the frustrations, the shortcomings. That generated noise, it generated a bit of movement eventually. Within the Noah Presgrove case, you're just not seeing it. Does that mean behind the scenes it's dead as well? I wouldn't know. But speaking publicly from what's visibly public, very flat, there's not that fire, there's not that push. It's like that. And why? We're not seeing press conferences, press releases, or any other formal update interviews. It's rather disappointing. That's why moments like this, if there ever is conflict, drama, or if there ever is a patch of BS and some weird people popping up and alternative account sharing, it's because it's filling that silence with noise, and it's not always for the right reasons, or it might not always do much good. But, what else can happen? Obviously, others have dropped like flies, but it won't all be for the same reasons. But I'll be honest with you, let's say Facebook and every other social media platform was very active with the Noah Presgrove situation, that's great. If YouTube was very quiet and there was only like 1 or 2 people, that's great, because you don't want too many individuals, if you want to call creators, covering, and you might think, that don't make any sense. Look, trust me, I've got extensive experience. I've been around cases where there's dozens of channels covering and talking, and it just gets too chaotic, too problematic, and everyone starts attacking one another. Well, not me. I normally have to defend myself and keep to myself. But it's like too many people in the kitchen. It doesn't always end well. So smaller in numbers, better communication, and better onwards. But as I said, predictions, going to make another one yet again. And what this prediction is, basing it off patterns and trends from the past, information and material and media, providing it's publicly viewable or can become publicly viewable, and it's not harming the case, there's no legal issues. When it comes to that type of material, the distribution of it is absolutely piss poor at times. Oh, it keeps falling into the wrong hands. It's because humans are too trusting. That's what the issue is. If we put aside the light, fairy, rainbow-coloured positive mentality and we replace it with WarLike Wrath, basic fucking positivity and a realistic nature, you'll be able to make more predictions, be a bit clearer, and prevent future issues as well. And where does it start? Well, first of all, you come across someone or some people. Do you have to do a background check of a stranger online, especially when it comes to, you're going to be passing on info? Well, it depends, doesn't it? You might be more likely to do it now if you've been screwed before. It's like an extra layer of protection and looking out for yourself. At the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, if you've got material, if you've got information and it can be passed on to do good, what good does it really do in sharing it with another stranger online who isn't even a creator? What good does that do? There's higher risk than reward, as in you may share it with a stranger who isn't going to make a video or do anything like that because that's not what they do. You're just friends with them, or you kind of acquaintances, that's it. You're just passing it on just to say, look, this is what's really going on. A high risk, as in stranger, they could turn on you, they could stab you in the back, obviously, or supposedly. That's happened to Justin Roy, stabbed in the back. As for Alicia Lee, supposedly stabbed in the back too. And that may come from, and I won't know the whole situation and not to come across as patronising, but it may be at times, if you put trust into someone because you yourself are a good person and you might be positive or you might be neutral and you might think the best in other humans, or you hope to see the best in other people before you see the negatives, maybe at times that's where one goes wrong. As it doesn't matter if it's face-to-face or online, people can be fake. People can switch and change. I've always said it like this. When it comes to online, not always, but fairly often, people can be whoever they want, show their true colours, be themselves without as much consequences for the right or wrong reasons. Yet you see them face to face in real life, oh, they're going to be real quiet, aren't they? They'll be considered a coward, right? So if you see the bad in people, or you see the true side of humans in one area, one type of environment, good, get out the way so then you know what you're dealing with. But in real life, completely different scenario, you may not see that side until it's too late. And it might vary between environment to environment and timings for people. But still, if there's ways of being able to pass things on for the right reasons, in hopes of spreading awareness, spreading a voice, giving updates, and being able to reduce the risk of being screwed yourself, I guess that's what needs to be done. So previously, if it be an interview or if it be a clip, if it be a screenshot, and then it's been exposed in the background or passed on, shared elsewhere, things going wrong, people who may have been friends or connected with one another just communicating in the past, group chats, private chats, and then later bridges burning down and one or the other reposting, resharing the screenshots of the conversations afterwards, leaking things after. The moment you lock eyes onto somebody else or some people, as in communicating and interacting, to what extent, to how close, who knows, and then you start sharing details or information to do with yourself or the case, you got to understand you're kind of giving them a form of power, but also you have a form of respect and trust within them, and it should be vice versa. That at any point, they could pull that plug, they could pull out, they could turn on you. So if you had sensitive stories or some personal things and you shared it with somebody else, wherever, you're kind of giving them a form of power, as in opening up, and they themselves have to respect the privacy, but not everybody always does that. It can get very messy. With the Dylan Rounds case, that's what happened. More so on the sideline of people pledging allegiance, alliance to one another, getting all friendly, then communicating, Discord group chats and whatnot elsewhere, people breaking in and out and leaking and revealing and exposing one another with time. It's just cancer. As a small little experiment, I wasn't that stupid, thankfully, but I remember I came across one individual that, questionable at the end of the day, pushing some claims of, oh yeah, this person's marrying one another. What the fuck going on there? Bullshit. But that wasn't the case. That wasn't the main focus. It was to do with just like some communication in the background about the case and the community of, you know, what's my thoughts on it and their thoughts. And what did they end up doing? They ended up posting one of the conversations publicly on their own page. And I thought, you naughty, naughty little twat. Why did you do that? But at the end of the day, not much was said because it was under control. You know, when humans think, ooh, what can we get out of this? What can we suck out? What can we hear and interpret? Let's be some kind of little psychologist or therapist to learn. Not gonna work. No, 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 no. But because I was multiple steps ahead, I kind of knew what to expect. So still get on as normal, or as normal as can be. But then eventually, we see what happens, we experiment, and then I see it for myself and I prove myself right. It reinforces things, lockdown system, alertness, and much more. But for most people, they wouldn't be thinking like that. They wouldn't feel the need to. They wouldn't be overthinking. And that's what can make other people vulnerable at times. And if you're talking about a true crime related case where there can be high emotions and tension and people connected or feeling that they relate to the case, or they're touched by Noah, or they did know, once knew Noah, those people may be more emotional, more in a vulnerable place where they put trust into others, want to reach out, want to share things. And if you misuse it, then you're screwing them over and you can screw the case over. I mean, very roughly said and put, in the past, when it came to the Christine Passay Parker case, and I think it was in Nevada, Eugene Mountains and Battle Mountain, if that's the name of the town, somewhere in that area. And Christine Passe Parker's family members reached out to me with bits of information and, tools along the way to do the map analysis and to spread that awareness. But they were in a bad situation at the time, and obviously being heavily involved, conflict of interest, because, the victims' family members, what that means is they might be more desperate for answers. They might be more desperate for awareness and reach. So they may reach out to whoever, whatever that's present in hopes that good can come out of it. And they decided to reach out to me, which worked out because it was under control. They just passed on info, correct stuff. And then I just spread the awareness and did my own analysis and map analysis. So it works for me, works for them. And it kind of helped keep the case alive in the process of trying to get answers. But if they reached out to the wrong people at a different point, it could have backfired on them. So when you apply it to here in the Noah Presgrove case, where it be the family member, where it be the friends of Noah, or a bit more distant, who may have information and they reach out to some of a random person online who's not even a creator, what's even the point of doing that when the risk is higher than the reward? I could understand if a person said, right, I've gathered these screenshots, I've gathered these photos, it's above board, it can be publicly green thumbs up shown or released in hopes of getting more people to view it. Yeah, you could probably post it on a community page, on a Facebook page, and so many people will see it, but not everyone. Let's do it on a different platform then. Well, if you do it on a different platform, you got to have your own channel in order to upload videos. And most people will have a channel on YouTube, as in being able to comment on other videos and have a playlist. You need a channel, you need an account, so it's set up by default anyway. But you haven't got an established channel or following. So let's say you had some of the most important information out there, groundbreaking, but you had 0 subscribers, 0 views, default profile picture, you upload that video, F all is going to happen. The algorithm will screw you over, because when you first start off on YouTube, they don't know who you are. They need to learn the patterns and behavior behind what you cover, what videos you make. It's just like when I'm doing my regular stuff, if I change it up to a different theme, a different topic, a one-off video, I am at times harming my own channel. But it's not my fault, it's just the way the algorithm is. It takes time to adjust. So if you keep switching and changing, that's not good. You got to stay somewhat consistent. Now, humans out there that like to complain and whine about why are you so obsessed about this case or that, it's one of the most incompetent mindsets, peasant-like mentality I have ever seen. Because at the end of the day, it's like a little example to put it all into perspective. If you've got an individual that has 5 ideas, separate ones, that's 5 separate lots of action to be taken. If you've got 5 different exercises when working out, you're going to be doing 5 of them. If you've got 50 to 100 different exercises, individual and variations, you're going to try each one out. So to apply to me, if I've got 10, 20, 30, 160 video ideas, individual ones, it just means that I'm going to make 160 videos and onwards for as long as there's ideas and natural ones. It's that simple. Obviously, humans can't understand or comprehend that. That's why you got peasant-like mentalities out there, and the ones that do have that mindset, they don't exactly contribute themselves to the case, which is absolutely pathetic. So they're not really in a position to talk. But to bring it back to my prediction is, based off the previous patterns and trends, if it continues onwards, don't expect much change. If you keep getting stabbed in the back or screwed over, it's because you've not adapted yourself. And this isn't about becoming a psychopath or some kind of a cold-blooded individual. It's just about adapting to an extent, so then you're not harmed as much for the future. So the next time you get a hold of information and it's very important and you want to burst, you want to share it public, you want to shout it from the rooftops, or you just want to reach out to a couple of people first before it does explode, just question and ask yourself, Who are you speaking to, or who are you reaching out to in this moment in time with what you're about to share? Is it worth it? What's the reward to risk ratio? The risk is higher than the reward. Don't bother sharing it. Oh, am I saying that public information should be hidden? Nope, that's just humans trying to twist the words. If you can release something public outright, then maybe do it on a channel, on a specific channel, on Facebook or Reddit, flat out there in a community or a page where it'll reach thousands of people. But if you were to be branching over onto other platforms, you just ask yourself, who should I reach out to with that info? Who can I trust? Who's credible? Who's got experience? Who has done stuff like that before in the past when it comes to passing on information or spreading awareness of a certain topic? If you just start throwing it back to anyone or everyone off the corner street, it's just not going to work quite the same way. You get hurt yourself. That information, how it's handled with whoever's in care of it, could misuse it and it just becomes invalid, or the delivery isn't quite there. So it's just about being a bit more alert and a bit more aware. You might see the good in people, but just try and question what is the catch, what's the slight negative, okay? So it's just worth putting out there. I know this is like a separate thing, but I've got to do these predictions along the way, and if people listen in, they might be able to apply it themselves, so then more people can save themselves down the line, and not just with this case or community, but other ones out there with time. Do I have any more predictions? Well, I think I said, or I may have just had it ingrained in my head as a prediction, that at some point people would have obsessions with me, and that's obviously very, very true. Not that I want it, but it happens out there from afar. Do we see the same level of obsessions as for cross-platform on other sites? Not so much. That makes a change. Do we have the patterns of people acting one way on YouTube, but then the complete opposite on Facebook, groveling and bowing down and being all nice to the family? No, not from what I've seen. So that makes a change. But if I was to compare, before we go any further in today's video, if I was to compare what happened the first 1 year anniversary of Noah Presgrove, days before it, how explosive it was on all different communities on Facebook, with the Presgrove family members, with Justin Roy and beyond. It was explosive. There was fire, there was tension. And whilst it's not a good thing, because people getting caught up in a crossfire, some getting blocked, some getting banned, whatever, others being on the receiving end of supposed harassment or not backing down when they should be, when they've been told. But regardless, even if you consider it a bit of negative or dark energy, any form of energy is better than none. Even if it's a bit of aggression, there's a burst of movement in some way. If it can be directed the right way, then that's even better. I mean, if you've got displacement, yeah, there's a reaction, a negative one. In terms of aggression, displacement, taking that aggression energy out on someone or something else which isn't deserving of it, which causes damage, reckless pain or suffering. If used to channel it through sublimation, where you channel that dark energy or aggression into something a bit more meaningful or in a more harmless way, that can be a positive. So like with the Dylan Rounds case, that level of frustration, anger, and building up with family members and even those on the community, they're like pushing for change, emails, calls to police, reaching out to the state of Utah for change, get the police to step down, publications online, articles, interviews, constant interviews at one point with East Idaho News with Nate Eaton and beyond. And then more so in recent time, the Dr. Phil episodes finally coming out. It showed Candice Cooley being on set talking. A lot went on. Is this a criticism within the Noah Presgrove case to suggest others aren't doing enough or the same? No, I'm not saying that. But other humans will like to twist it that way, won't they? See, too many steps ahead. Wow. But still, you're talking about the last time where there was quite a bit of aggression and there was energy, a build-up of it, and it was overflowing. It would be the 1 year anniversary of Noah Presgrove. Ever since, It's just gone a bit flat. Oh, it's more calm and more time to think. But is there enough progress? No. And this is a bit of a grey area and a bit of an issue. In the past with the Dylan Rounds case, when there was a grey area, a time of reflection or catching up, there was progression, there was a clean-up job. It did work out fairly well. But from what I've seen in the Noah Presgrove case during the periods of silence is a lot of questions, not enough answers, and then additional supposed points, either not cleared up or counter claims made with not enough hard, if not non-hard evidence. Not really getting anywhere. However, just so happens, in a way, my channel and coverage during these moments of silence have led to some answers, even if I've become the sacrificial lamb, the black sheep, where I might get tugged, prod, attacked, questioned, discredited, harassed, and more, false claims being made, such as when, what was it, Sheree or Divine, the card reader, falsely accused WarLike Wrath for cyberbullying with absolutely no proof or evidence. Absolutely pathetic. Or the time when Happy Shack falsely accused WarLike Wrath for hacking in and hacking people's phones with zero evidence. Absolutely pathetic. Or when Intelligent People Hate Me made false claims with absolutely no hard evidence to say that WarLike Wrath is George Choden. No, I don't think so. These type of humans and more beyond, the way they make these ridiculous claims, whether they're slanderous or not, just these ridiculous claims, and yet these are fully grown adults that may have certain roles and responsibilities in life and beyond, and yet you see this side to them online and you think, fuck me, I'm glad I'm not on the receiving end of them in real life. It's just like the other person could be a nurse or in the medical field or up and coming, and I'm thinking, your attitude and your behavior online is absolutely piss poor. But I'm glad I'm not in that hospital room or appointment room. If I'm on the receiving end and you've got an injection needle, your incompetence, your recklessness, your impetuous, bombastic, obtuse mindset, I do not want any medical attention from you. And it just happens within the Dylan Rounds case, there was medical people and supposed psychos and more. And it's like, they can be like this online. You see that true side. What are they like in real life? Do they hide it? Is it in the making? You get on the wrong side of them in real life and you're getting treated by them. What are they going to do to you? And more. And then you get the other perspective, and we won't go too deep here because it will absolutely trigger humans. But you get these fully grown individuals with their mindsets, their attitudes, their recklessness online, their toxic two-faced nature, and they just so happen to have a family or children. You think, how are they raising those children with the same mindset, the same cancer, or what? Makes you think. Now, of course, into the medical area, all under control, man, Dr. Wrath, gotta heal myself, I'll try it. Not as effective, but that's under control there. As for other areas, who knows at this point. But yeah, I've come across a range of characters and humans with time, more experienced, more knowledgeable, much older, and yet how they conduct themselves online at times is pathetic. And then you realize these are real people. So what are they like in real life? I like to go beyond onto an even deeper level, deeper than what anyone could possibly think. And that is why I'm able to do what I do. And that is why, such as this channel, is where it's at right now. Because whether you're a creator or not, how many times are you on the receiving end? That's what you got to ask yourself. If you're on the receiving end quite often, because you like it that way, in terms of dodgy scenarios, well then, okay, good for you. But in a more formal procedure, you keep getting screwed, keep getting used, keep getting stabbed in the back, and it doesn't change. There might be some little fine-tuning that needs to take place, but if you look back at my videos and my predictions with time, it might help you as well. So yeah, it's there's a lot of crossovers. It doesn't matter what case, true crime related, there are crossovers. But is there a crossover with phone pings? Now don't worry, I'm probably going to adjust the title of this video now with the predictions that I've made, just fill it out a little bit more so people know where we are at. But if you have joined this live premiere late, welcome, but be sure to rewind back so you understand all the predictions and deepness there. Right now, we're talking about the theme of phone pings, and it doesn't translate very well, in my opinion, when comparing it to the Dylan Rounds case, where it was based off a victim, a single white male individual, 19 years old, just like Noah Presgrove, in a rural area, but there was less people present. The only one present at the time was supposedly James Brenner, the murderer, 58-year-old at the time, which was the 28th of May 2022, Memorial Day weekend in Lucin, Utah. Population at the time, 4 or 5 people in total, and others scattered about. No cameras, no surveillance whatsoever. And yet, the signal, or at least the phone ping data, was retrievable, traced, and there's a clear pattern and key timestamps, even when other humans out there kept saying, nope, there was no patterns, there was no data, there was no times on phones. The amount of humans with time when they tried discrediting me, and at the end of the day, the Twatinator made it very clear and made references from day one. As soon as I saw a twat, I remembered that. And when it came towards the end of the case, and people wanted to all jump into the same boat and relate, screw that shit. Once a twat ends up being still one, okay? So I remembered that, and I remembered the corrections. I remembered what humans tried doing when I was doing my coverage, and yet I turned out to be right about certain aspects, which is quite typical. Does that happen here within the Noah Presgrove case? So. Because things what I've reiterated or relayed on is from what others have said, horse's mouth, and the people that bow down look up to, but then they end up changing it themselves, so it ends up being a bit of a contradiction and two-face. But, you know, when I make references, and I mention the little clips in the shorts, then people realise, that's why you said that, Raf. That's why you've noted it down that way. Not because I know, but it's because what others know. Is that passing on a responsibility? Well, at the end of the day, if you're in a community, you're researching, you're learning, or you're creating, you're never going to be there in the moment. So the only thing you can do is research, listen, learn, and look up and whatnot. Just like when it comes to World War I or II. We're stating this as a fact, we're stating that as a fact. Were you there? So how would you know? Well, we're only listening to what's been said and what's been documented throughout time and the historical records. You'd hope to be able to recreate that here within the Noah Presgrove case. Look at the historical records and the patterns and the accounts and whatnot. But if the original historical records and documented stuff isn't quite accurate or true, then everyone's screwed from there on. Unless you can trace your way back, somehow go back in time. Oh no, time-traveling Jack? What the hell? That could be a new one, that. We talk about sleepwalkers. We talk about magic taking place. What's going to happen next? Someone's come back from the future or ahead in time? I know there was the perception of some people from Australia where they might be 12 hours ahead. You know, can they tell the future as to what's happened next? I know I kind of time traveled at one point where I was talking about the Camaro, where some were saying, how would Caden Pressey know who drove what when picking up Georgia, Ken Pressey's cousin, if Caden wasn't present at the time to see the vehicle? Maybe he just assumed it was this or that. But it couldn't have been a Camaro, it was another type of vehicle. And then I suggested, well, you can get an SUV Camaro, and supposedly that's not even out yet. It doesn't quite exist. I must be from the future. Oh, goodness. Hopefully that doesn't lead to people bombarding me for answers and questions and whatnot. But in all seriousness, just to focus back in with the phone pings and data, the Dylan Rounds case was very clear, simplistic, and from very early on in the case. You could retrace the steps and patterns, and eventually with time, new evidence came out, even when a lot was wasted because the police didn't follow up on it. Crazy. Arguably more shocking than the Noah Presgrove one, and that might come across as hard to believe, but if you look back at my videos, you'll realise. And yet, despite all the incompetence and the missed opportunities, still managed to get somewhere, make progress, and reach a conclusion. But take in mind, that was from 2022 to 2024. I had the stamina from start to finish. Does that mean to say the same here? Who knows? We see what happens. But to be around a certain case long enough and to see it out and it being resolved for most part of it, and to be in such a reckless case where it can be at the worst when it comes to the community inside and externally, and on top the incompetence by police. Of course, corruption is worse than incompetence, but both can lead to wasted chances and opportunities and fresh evidence and data being lost along the way and onwards too. So we've been in a situation like that, and yet to see it out, there's still some kind of hope for the Noah Presgrove case. But obviously there's also like another weird pattern is whatever case I seem to cover, some people think that I am that person. So in the Dylan Rounds case, supposedly people said that I look like Dylan Rounds. I am Dylan Rounds, which was a bit... And in the Noah Presgrove case, there might have been the odd comment where they said, oh, are you Noah Presgrove? Am I Noah Presgrove? No. But maybe some people said I look like Noah. So it gets a little bit messy. But with the serious patterns, phone pings, in any case, missing person or true crime, very important. It can be used towards the victim. It can be used towards the perpetrator or the witnesses. It can prove someone's alibi to be true or highlight an alibi to reinforce innocence within someone or a group to say, yeah, my phone pinged over here at this time, and it just happened to be the time of when that individual disappeared or died, but they were over there, so I couldn't have had any role or connection. Okay, understandable. As for a victim, missing person or following in the footsteps up until they died, you get an idea of the location to find the person, to go to these areas, checkpoints along the way to work out, is there anything of interest here or there where that person walked in? Does it reveal anything? I can probably do a bit more narration like this on the maps very shortly, so stick around. But it can tell a story, it can be used as evidence, and you can follow in the footsteps yourself on foot and see what you find along the way if there is anything still remaining. Just like with CCTV cameras. And when you think about it, even if the cameras didn't work, just the fact that you got a party house, you got how many? 10, 15 people still present there Monday. Quite a few witnesses, but they're all together or all in the same room and nowhere elsewhere. They're pretty much useless as witnesses in that regards. But surely there's got to be at least one, the odd person somewhere that may have been a true witness to something taking place. But you got cameras. If they had worked, and if there's many of them, and they were in the right direction, just imagine what they could have revealed. But let's just say it's actually true that the cameras weren't working, they've not been maintained. If in an alternative scenario that they were working and they were perfectly fine, do you think we'd be in the same outcome or not? Do you think that there would still be no footage, or it could have disappeared, malfunctioned, but actually was deleted because it could reveal the truth? Or could it be the opposite of, oh no, the camera footage is used and then it leads to some kind of success? Maybe I do a poll, whether that be right now or do it on the channel page. It depends if I remember to do it, but I'm just interested in the alternatives, the alternative scenarios which never happened, but if they did, what would have actually come out about it? And people will tend to say, well, you know, it never happened in the first place, so there's no point even thinking or questioning it. Well, if there's a brief spell of silence, there's no harm looking at it, because the importance of questioning the alternative scenarios is more so measuring the attitudes of people and how they respond to it. Given a scenario-based question, how do they react to it? So even if the alternative didn't happen, you measure the person's behavior or response and attitude, you know, when answering a question, then you could put things into perspective as to how it probably would go based off how they see things and how they would act in another given situation. Then you could reflect it back on the actual current situation and make more sense as to why it is the way it is and how the person present or people could be involved for the right or wrong reasons. That's the way I see it, at least. The issue with the Noah Presgrove case is just that there's a lot more people at hand, a lot more people with phones. Well, if you just do it individually, it can't be that difficult, right? And this is where we get onto the issue. Besides the information and material along the way where it may have been passed on to the wrong people, or people have been screwed over, or it's not become as effective anymore, or the delivery has been poor, then you got the other people where they say, I've seen this, I've seen that, I've been told this, I've been told that, from what I've seen, from what I've heard. No source, no names, no direct context, not enough hard evidence. It's pointless, right? If I do another comparison, what people have said with time, even if it's very bold, shocking, and done with a level of confidence, could be, oh yeah, Noah Presgrove, his death or his body recorded by others, from what I've been told. Noah Presgrove beaten by a golf club, from what I've been told. This actually happened, being chased away, from what I've been told. That person was actually awake, or that person was actually coming back to the house, from what I've been told. From what I've been told, from what I've been told, from what they've said, from what they've seen, from someone who I've reached down to background, from a secret contact. What good does that do? It does F all. No different to the Kenny Veach case, where people come out with high levels of confidence and say, well, actually, I know a friend that went out there hiking and saw a massive dark creature, got terrified near to the cave, ran in, then ran out, and then never came back again. The end. Yeah, that really did happen. Not. And 10 times out of 10, the people that come out with all these different stories, there's never any hard evidence to be backed up with. So it's absolutely pointless, a time waster. Now, the exception would be in the Kenny Veach case, there will be a younger target audience of people interested. So if there's younger people present, younger people with more of an imaginative mindset, creating stories, whether that be for attention or just for the fun of it. It's a bit reckless, but you'd expect it from certain age ranges, right? But the older somebody is, they should have a bit more common sense as to what's appropriate and what's not. And from the people that come up with all the different stories, claims, suggestions, levels of confidence, making bold statements as to who's responsible, what's responsible, when it happened or where it happened, but there's no hard evidence to be backed up with publicly speaking, or no public source given, and it's of an older age range, what's the whole point of doing it? Why are they doing it? Are they trying to create a divide? Are they trying to create confusion or misdirection? Because let's just say you got members of the opposition who believe it's accidental or hit and run. And then the other side, people that believe it's a murder. And then some people in between that believe it's a murder. So they're on side with the left-hand side, just call it that, who believe it's murder. These neutral ones end up reinforcing it or making bold points and statements, but they don't do anyone much good when they can't back up with evidence, unless they're planted as like the jokesters, the jokers. Here we go, prediction time once again. So feel free to listen in if you want, because this is coming in on the spot. I'm channeling it from my spirits. Okay, and I don't even drink. But the way I see it is, and this is a prediction, based off patterns and trends from the past and how it could escalate further, there's a likely chance that you might get people along the way, whether they do it on behalf of somebody else or they do it just for the fun of it. Either way, it leads to the same direction and outcome, being a disruptor. A disruptor in division, divide and conquer? No. A disruptor in distrust, trust issues? No. A disruptor in making a mockery of a serious situation or a valid theory or concept, undoing it all, making one or all a laughing stock, so in the future it doesn't hold as much weight or value and it collapses. Example, Kenny Veach case. Aliens, military, Area 51, secrets, government-related, caves, military equipment, access denial. Certain valid points, most definitely. military land proposal takeover of a public hiking area which Kenny Veach hiked in, and just after his disappearance, close to a year later, military all of a sudden want to take over the land. That's quite coincidental, the timing of it all. Just when Kenny Veach announced that he found something out there and he felt vibrations, a dark, deep cave shaped like an M. Never to be seen again. No one's found it since. Kenny Veach hasn't been found either, presumed missing out there supposedly. And military wants to take over that land where people hiked, so then no one else can hike out there after that point. One thing leading to another? Possible. Actual proof and evidence of a land proposal takeover too, with documents and maps and whatnot with time. Very serious, very formal. But what happened in documentaries and media coverage? Conspiracy theorist. Conspiracy theories. Making it sound like it's all made up or some kind of joke. Whether that's done because they know what they're doing and they want to cause that disruption, or they're just doing it because why not? They're making a mockery of some theories and concepts which are actually valid. And that can be done as like a negative chain effect, which then has an impact on those, has an impact and influence on first-time readers and those researching who may see this and think, oh yeah, it is ridiculous and crazy. We've got the typical weirdos, wackos, and strange, crazy people that need to be locked up and drugged up to shut up. But these people actually have a valid point. It's just how they've been represented or presented by third-party individuals out there. It causes a chain of destruction over time, and it can help cover up things and aspects. So my prediction is that's what's happened within the Noah Presgrove case to a smaller extent. You got genuine people that truly believe it's a murder, and they may try to piece it together with the evidence and material, what they have or what's publicly available, and some will have a theory or concept behind it, provided it's not too crazy or wild. It can't get any worse than David Paulides saying Noah Presgrove may have been abducted by aliens. And by the way, make sure to buy my book as well. It's on sale. We saw all that, didn't we? So you've got a bit of a middle ground to measure it all up. But people that genuinely believe it's a murder and they're trying to make sense of it, they're trying to prove it with evidence and material and some kind of critical thinking. And then you get the other reckless lone wolves that pop in out of nowhere on side with the same theory or beliefs, but how they represent themselves and on behalf of the overall concept of Noah's outcome, they do it so recklessly in a damaging way, and they make everyone else look like an idiot. They make the concept look ridiculous, so it all folds in on itself, right? Now, an indirect means would be from the opposition, who all believe, or some believe it's to be an alternative outcome for Noah's outcome, whether that be to do with the death or what happened to Noah leading up, events in between, and how people can't get the story straight. It becomes a bit of a mockery. They end up doing themselves in or screwing one another over in the process. Like, what was it, Becky Barnes or someone called Becky that said, yes, I was at the party house Monday morning at something AM. And by the way, Sarah Long was there, and even Stevie Howard. And Stevie Howard saying she wasn't there because she was out of the area. She was in Bowie, Texas or something. So someone who was closer, such as the sister, Sarah Long, had to come on down instead on behalf of Stevie. So why would Becky be saying that they're all there then, if Stevie's saying she wasn't? Why would you need to lie? Why would someone need to come up with a completely different story? If you know one another, you see one another, you're in the presence of one another, or you're not, it should be easy to be able to, confirm yes or no. Or like with the sleep situation with Jack Newton. Oh yeah, I was asleep. And Ken saying, no you weren't, I saw you awake. Either you're asleep or you're not. It's not that difficult, but why make it difficult? Why make it complex? Because it kind of involves you somehow? And there'll be other examples too. It just becomes a bit of a mockery, a bit of a joke, a bit of a circus show. And that's done indirectly at times with the opposition within. So it's not always clear and coherent there. Even when others make it out to be that way, it's not always. Because, in the background, certain family or friends of friends could say, yeah, when it comes to the phone pings and when it comes to communication with police, full-on cooperation, all done, all above board and whatnot, fine. But as for Caden Pressey, well, he's the odd one out because he's coming out with alternative stuff and it's not quite right. He's making mistakes. But at least he's publicly talking so other people get to learn about the case. As for the others that, claim to care about the case, came to care about justice for Noah, but also claim to care about their own reputation because they don't like being dragged through the mud. They don't make themselves any easier or make the situation any better when it comes to publicly, speaking or communicating. And at the same time, they shouldn't have to, should be able to keep to themselves and whatnot without having to, talk about the personal life online. I understand that. But if you feel passionate or you get defensive, you don't like the situation, and it might be partially caused by a form of silence or changing the story with time, what do you expect? A little bit of feedback, a little bit of communication in response can go a long way. It's the equivalent of me, WarLike Wrath, if I suddenly stopped covering this case with no explanation at all, and I just moved on to something completely different. And then I got waves of messages or responses, people demanding answers or just worried or concerned. And then if I said, I hate all this, I'm getting harassed over and over again, I didn't do myself any favors. If I just simply said, right, I'm stepping back from the case, not because I've been forced to, not because I'm being attacked, it's just because I want to try something different on my channel. I want to upload some other videos. I want to do things I was supposed to be doing a year ago, right? There should be more of an understanding there. And if there wasn't, well, then that's not my problem. But you just give it a bit of feedback, just a bit of an update, it can go a long way. If you keep completely silent or you act in odd ways without much context, there may be a response. And then you can't complain about it because you kind of created that for yourself. So like within the Noah Presgrove case, the easiest thing to do would be just to communicate. It might be harder now. People may made it harder on themselves now because of all that time passing by. In fact, they do try talking now, they might be less likely to be listened to or believed in. Because it'd be like, well, you've kept quiet for this long, and you sided with certain people for this long. Are we supposed to believe you now? Don't think so. So that's the other lose-lose situation for maybe some. If people really talkative early on and maintained a level of clarity and consistency, that would go a long way. Or, like an attempt. Obviously with Cade and Pressy, public communication, when you compare and contrast with certain interviews, inconsistencies, which is very unfortunate, but you've got tools, you've got material to look at, compare, contrast. You could say people are more critical, or I could be more critical of Cade and Pressy. That is not a criticism or a negative itself, it's actually a compliment. How is being more critical towards someone more of a compliment within this case? Well, this is where the most negative dark force present ends up being more positive than positive people are. That's the level of control there. And I'll just explain it. That when one is more critical of another, it's because there is more material, more access to contents to look at and assess. More talking, more room for error. But more talking can also mean more room for information and gathering it all, and listening and comparing and contrasting. That could be considered a case study when applied to Cade and Pressy, but it should be applied to the other 10, 15 plus other partygoers too. But not everybody has been as publicly vocal as Caden has. Not everybody else has publicly put themselves out there where they could make mistakes, they could mess up, and then they could be criticised, right? Jack Newton, to an extent, is maybe the second in line to have been vocal up to a certain point, and then you compare it to the odd interview, and then there's inconsistencies. You get what I'm saying? If there was more people like that, more people like Caden, not that they have to be in agreement or have to say the same thing, but if they just were a bit more public about it, and at the same time, maybe they shouldn't have to be. Because at the end of the day, I guess it's more so Noah Presgrove's family that directly reached out to the general public for maybe a voice, for a bit of help, for a bit of awareness. Those on the receiving end may have not gone the same level or depth. And if you don't reach out to the general public, then you don't really owe them anything in the first place, if that makes sense. If you reach out to the general public for help and good things come out of it, people help you, then if you then suddenly push everyone away, that would be a bit unfair and rude and a bit disrespectful. But if you never reached out for help in the first place, you never asked for anything in the first place, then you don't really owe anyone an answer onwards. If that applies to party goers and beyond, who may have been protected or shielded by other friends or family members, who have stayed out of most of the social media aspects and have not reached out to the general public for help or awareness in spreading the case, then they shouldn't have to explain themselves publicly onwards. But on the sideline, if they do feel quite passionate about their reputation or about the sick of being attacked or questioned, if they have made questionable choices or decisions or made some references in the past which could be considered dodgy, they might have brought a little bit onto themselves. So they could set the record straight now, even though it could be considered a bit too late compared to if it was done earlier, then things could be put into perspective more. Instead of just putting or laying Caden Pressey or Jack Newton out on a table like a surgeon to use a scalpel and assess every little detail and mistake made. Not that it's selective, it's just that that's all that's present. You need to fill out the menu for the others present at the party, what they've got to say, what they had said, and what they've witnessed. And the counterpoint would be, well, that was all done, that communication and that cooperation with the police in the background. Okay. Well, does all that communication and cooperation, are they all now ticked off the list as innocent? Or does everything still hang in the air as to uncertainty? Has anyone officially been cleared from this case? Does anyone know? I'm just going to get a drink because my throat's a little bit dry. Has anyone actually been cleared from this case yet? That's what I'm interested in. If no one has been cleared from this case, yet there's been people in the background that have supposedly cooperated perfectly, well then obviously not good enough, is it? So you think, well, the next best thing you can do, if you can, of course, is speak out publicly. Or is it one of those things where those that cooperated with police at the start can't speak out publicly beyond? But then why can Caden Pressey then, but others can't? So there's some counterpoints and questions there. But I just think if, besides Caden, the other guys with Caden, if they spoke out publicly, that could go a long way too. Unless they're scared, unless they feel pressured by a darker force where they've got to keep quiet and not say anything. You know, it depends how you look at it. But to refer back to these predictions and stuff, hopefully I made most of them clear up to now. The only other prediction that I would say is the longer this case goes on for and the longer the silence with majority of people, even if they're innocent, right? You'd think if you're very innocent, you're probably more likely possibly to be able to reveal your side of the story compared to someone who is responsible or compared to a person of interest that witnessed something. Those individuals may need to be protected, or those individuals, their statements and claims need to be protected for the health and the longevity of this case and for it to be valid. But others that didn't see much, didn't hear much, may have been cleared off the list as well. If they could speak out more, that could help. The odd viewer on my channel have said, well, they've reached out to some of these party goers or parents of these party goers, and the attitude was, it's not going to do much. It's not going to do much good. It's not going to help. There's no point speaking out publicly. Unless they think by weighing it out that way, that so much time's gone on since, there's been so much skepticism building and more trust issues than ever before, that if someone did try speaking out genuinely now, they'd be tossed aside and attacked and it wouldn't do much good. Maybe if it was done really early on and out the way, people would be more likely to listen. But this is where it all comes back round as a circle. But if there was the odd key, genuine individual, and not an invite for fake people, but genuine people of interest or witnesses to some extent, and those innocent, if they reached out to the right person in order of spreading the voice, the word, channeling it through a second-hand person, being put out there in a balanced way or some kind of perspective, it might work out better. Hearing it from the horse's mouth is always first and most important. But if people aren't willing to listen to the horse's mouth, they might be more willing to listen to a second, third-hand party individual who may word it with a level of reasoning or balance. When I think back to the Dylan Rounds case, the interviews, the updates, the info provided by the parents, Candice Cooley, a range of people were sick and didn't want to hear what they had to say. And it's the parents of all people. They just didn't want to listen. They didn't like them. They didn't trust them. But people trusted me. People preferred me relaying it onwards. You think it would sound better it being from the horse's mouth, direct, but people couldn't stand it, didn't want to listen, didn't like how it was being put across. So when I relayed it, said the same things and put in a bit of perspective, people were more likely to believe and trust in that than direct from the source. So that's another countermeasure, which could be done in the Noah Presgrove case, or should have been done at some point. Now, as for phone pings, that can come up in the conversations of discussions and communication of who was where was what, how relevant to Noah and his whereabouts. You got the issues with the amount of phone pings, the amount of phones present, and where they ended up, and if they were on people at the time. And as for Noah, of all people, he didn't. And to be fair, if Noah Presgrove had his phone on him and you could trace his phone pings, his steps and where he ended up, could that give more rich data behind how Noah died, or at least where he died at? Possibility, but it'd probably still have to be paired with other forms of hard evidence. Because if you look at the Dylan Rounds case, and it's hard to remember it all, okay? So at 6:50 a.m, Dylan Rounds wakes up or is on the move. At 6:51 or 6:53 a.m, roughly, that's when he makes a call to his grandmother about what he's going to do. 6:58, tries calling James Brenner, who's on site at the Grainshed property, no answer. Then at, what's the next time? 7:03 a.m, makes it down to the Grainshed property. 7:27 a.m, last phone ping of when Dylan, well, it's the after effects of Dylan's death by then. From 7:03 a.m, the last time Dylan was alive, to 7:27 a.m, when he's already dead. Round it up roughly 30-minute time period of Dylan's death. But did we know that though at the time? Nope. That was only reinforced when there was time-lapse video footage found of Brenner at the time of 7:27 in possession of Dylan's phone in his trailer with blood all over him, that being Dylan's blood. And you know what? Humans, and I can envision them right now, I can sense the twatness of people. Think of a new perfume, a new scent, le twat. I could sense it with people at the time, the awkwardness, the stubbornness. Well, we don't know for sure that it's Dylan's blood. Oh, but isn't it kind of ironic how you got in a space of 30 minutes roughly, Dylan alive, then Dylan dead, and in between you got Brenner in possession of Dylan's phone with blood on him. I think it's self-explanatory, isn't it, with a bit of common sense, but people obviously lacked it and were like, well, it may not be Dylan's blood. There's DNA on the shirt of Brenner's, which is Dylan's, but not the blood. That could be anything. It could be an animal. Oh my God, the incompetence by humans. And I don't forget, 4, 5, 6 years on, I don't forget those humans and that mindset. That's what separates me from all with time. That's what shows the consistency with time as well. But nevertheless, I turn out to be right. There we go once again. But in terms of that time-lapse footage, we didn't see it publicly. We had to believe in it, but it ended up being the truth. Revealed by the family through the interviews, reinforced by the police and in the official court documents afterwards. So it was right in the first place. But that time-lapse footage, as incriminating as it is individually and as important as it is, it truly complemented the timestamps phone pings from 7:03 to 7:27. Before that time-lapse footage, it was assumed that, well, 7:03, Grangeshed, 7:27 near to the trailer, I guess Dylan's still alive. Beyond, onwards, after 7:43 a.m, next phone ping onwards being at Dylan's farm. Oh, maybe Dylan made it back to the farm and then went back to the grain shed. He was already dead by then. He was dead, at least by 7:27. From 7:03 to 7:27, dead. Like that. Time-lapse footage found later from Dylan's phone. Deep forensic dive, despite the phone being disposed of in the pond, still retrieved. Whether the video was deleted by Brenner or he didn't know it was on there, but he threw it in the pond, it could have been corrupted, the file. No, they found it, traced it back, analysed it, police reinforced it, and it incriminated Brenner, but it also confirmed at what time Dylan died at, and then the after events being recorded visually. So, in the Noah Presgrove case, all these phone pings are good, but if they could be backed up with video footage somehow, even better. And someone like Noah, it's not possible because one, he didn't have his phone on him at the time, which you could say is questionable, but also most unfortunate. And two, in terms of CCTV cameras, which can provide a timestamp too, they weren't working supposedly either. That's unfortunate. And even if they had worked, they could have been wiped. You never know. But I think I've done enough talking and show my face. Let's head on over to the map right now, just to put it more into perspective. Once again, I'm using some markers roughly with particular timestamps and particular events, which supposedly shows something did happen. But that's not the theme of phone pings, but more so phones being used to record footage, which then shows the timestamp on those devices. Would there be a need to use the phone ping data to mark them out at those spots? Not really. You get where I'm coming from. You got to take in mind that if it was true, and I don't know how true it really is, but if this area has a bad signal on and off and it's intermittent and it has an impact negatively on the accuracy of one's phone ping location, such as with Jack, supposedly, whose phone pinged near to or at the highway at a certain point, but that was because it was a bad signal. He wasn't there. The phone pinged him over that place. Well, let me make one thing very clear to put it into perspective, and I want everyone to listen in right now. You want to clip this video, you can in just a second. If Jack Newton's phone pinged at the spot of where Noah's body was at the time, or earlier or later, regardless, if it's down to a bad signal causing misplacement of phone pings and locations, then why the hell did it not happen, or at least be revealed by the hands of Tyler Hardy? Why does Tyler Hardy link in with Jack Newton's situation of a phone pinging in the wrong area? Because, you know, when it comes to Tyler Hardy, when he was driving down the highway, going towards south and passing by, when Tyler made his first call, which in total was the second call, the first call was by the other Tyler. Tyler Hardy called second. His first call being at around 5:46 a.m. It didn't work because there was static. There was a bad signal. Then by 5:53, the final and second call at Tyler Hardy's was successful and made it through to the dispatch. So my question is, if Jack Newton's phone can ping you at the highway when you weren't even there because of a bad signal at the party house property, let's put it that way, then what the hell does that mean for Tyler Hardy when he made the first call and there was a bad signal and he couldn't quite communicate, couldn't reach out to dispatch? Where would that place his phone ping? If Tyler Hardy was down the highway when making a call and if there was a bad signal, based off Jack Newton's claims, that it should probably ping Tyler Hardy, not at the highway, but further down, or at the party house, or beyond, at the casino, in the water, man, or in the woodland. You get what I'm saying? Who else's phone pings could have pinged in the wrong area? Or is it just magically Jack of all people? Not quite Jack of all trades, but Jack in jack shit. Is that possible? Who else had phones pinging in the wrong area due to a bad signal? I've only heard Jack ever mention it. Not what he created, but what he was told by police. And one of the reasons which urged for a lie detector polygraph test to be done in the first place. Right. What about the other person's phone that pinged at the highway? If Jack's phone pinged at the highway incorrectly, does that mean the other person's phone pinged incorrectly at the highway too? The only other mention I've heard about a phone ping was through that Snapchat conversation with Colton, Newton, and a stranger claiming to be Noah's friend online, which is a bit questionable and dodgy, right? Some default random person claiming to be Noah's friend, acting on his behalf to get answers and reaching out to people. But maybe it was done as a strategy in order to gain the trust of others and get answers from the likes of Colton, Jack Newton's older brother, maybe. But the reference of, oh yeah, and JJ Bump Ass was at the party at some point. And Colton said, yeah, correct, based off a reference to a phone ping. So the phone of JJ Bump Ass did ping at the party. Right. What about anyone else's? Does that apply as well? Or what? That's what I'm thinking. 10, 15 party goers, 40 party goers Sunday night or a day before, whichever timeline you go from Caden Pressey's. It's a lot of people. And in a small space, you can imagine all the phone pings and the mapping of it really overlapping one another, being quite cluttered. It'd be a bit messy, but it'd also be important, though. If Noah Presgrove was in presence of his own phone as he may have walked away, it would show his phone pinging and his steps and whatnot in a certain direction, and it could reveal what direction he truly walked in, how far he truly went until the phone stopped pinging in a particular spot. And if it reached a halt, that could be because Noah stopped walking and was hanging about, or when he may have died or attacked to some extent. And any other people in the presence of the phone, walking, following Noah, approaching, ambushing Noah, it would ping in the same spot, and it could reveal all kinds of stuff. But honestly, if any of that is possible, and on the conditions, because we don't know how true it is, how many party goers were in possession of their phones at all times at the party? 99.9% of partygoers may have brought their mobile phones, smartphones with them to the party to record, document, Snapchat, online, communication, taking photos, selfies, the typical stuff people would do nowadays. And maybe more importantly, to communicate with loved ones or family members to say, I'm going to stay out here, or could you pick me up, or I just wanted to let you know I'm on the way back now. Things like that, all very normal. But out of that percentage of people that have their phones with them or brought them down to the party, how many of those party goers decided to carry their phones with them at all times? Right? Think of Mikey Lair, Sunday, supposedly. Got into a bit of an argument with Noah. Fish hooked Noah, Noah bit Mikey's finger. Caden Pressey supposedly covering accidentally Mikey's phone. Clearly, it shows that Mikey wasn't in possession of his mobile phone at all times. Got a bit sloppy, or someone covered it, concealed it by accident. Even just for a brief few moments, if someone's not in possession of their phone, if they go off elsewhere to do something, to engage in a dodgy activity, or something to do with Noah, the phone's not going to ping where they are. And it's like crucial, vital information and evidence missed out just because they didn't have the phone on them at the time. Would partygoers, if any were responsible, be thinking consciously, right, we best leave our phones at the house whilst we go and take Noah out or dispose of him after, because we don't want the phone pings and data tracing back to us? Would they be thinking that all on the spot? Maybe not. Now, a time of where phone ping and data probably would be required or helpful, and supposedly, I think they said that with Caden Press's phone data or whatnot, has been confirmed or reinforced with police and it's above board, supposedly. I've not seen it publicly though, so I'm not going to know the full story. But remember the theme of Caden Pressy saying, at 5:21, going down to the scene at the highway, being present with Mikey, Isaac, Brylan, Sweat. Okay. And then there was a counterpoint that, at 5:27 a.m, one of the guys which Clayton claimed to be with him at the highway was actually still at the party house taking a photo or some kind of Snapchat with the girls, and here's proof of it, an overlay of that time which may or may not have been manipulated. But by the way, the original raw footage of the people posing in the photo at the party house at the time when Clayton's at the highway is not revealed. Great. Not. Doesn't help. But what I'm getting at is, let's just say, I don't know the full story, but like a theory, if Caden Pressy says he got to the highway and it was around 5:21, how would he know that precise time? Then how would he know the time of when he left, 5:30? Surely he must have been in the presence of his own phone or somebody else's to know the time, roughly. Maybe. But if Caden didn't have his phone, just point it this way, is that strange? Is that weird? Because people may have been critical on Caden for that, but what about the other guys as well present with Caden? It's not just all on Caden, that, is it? But there are moments, times in life where you may leave your phone behind and you could say, no, people are glued to it 24/7. Not if an unexpected, shocking event comes around. You might get the exception of those that are like, I can't leave my phone behind because I got my painted little pretty nails and I got my makeup and I got my tutorial and I just want to keep it all together. My purse, my bag, and my favorite coupons for Starbucks. I'm gonna bring it all with me, even if it's a life or death situation. I cannot neglect it. Yeah, there might be some out there like that, but for someone like Caden Pressy, woken up at 5:15 supposedly, and others, that unexpected, shocking news, you're not expecting it. It's going to catch you off guard at any time, especially when you've just woken up. So you're not quite there with it. You're worried. You might be sad, scared. You want answers. You're in a rush. You haven't got time to think. You're trying to gather your thoughts, but also gather your items, what may be needed to get to the scene. And as for Caden, he was more preoccupied with finding his shoes. Couldn't find it, so he ended up hopping about. So, yeah. Leaving the phone behind, possibly. Caden did say he was in possession of his phone roughly at the time of when he was woken up because he checked the time 5:15. So he was close to his phone. But when woken up and startled, maybe Caden dropped his phone or it slid down the side of the chair, the sofa, or whatever type of furniture people want to analyse there, because people get triggered over that and it's a bit crazy. You could have dropped the phone, could have left it behind and then got up quick without thinking, right, I should probably pick the phone up, put it in my pocket and then move on. Because what good does a mobile phone do from getting here to the highway? What more can you do with a mobile phone? And maybe contact your family, contact loved ones, friends about it? Yeah, maybe. But you could always do that when returning back to the house to let people know. Because, at least from Caden's point of view and the other guys that came on down, they weren't the first ones there. Jack Newton was already there. A pair of truck drivers or truckers were already there. Not Tyler Hardy. They were afterwards. So, when you get late to the party, no pun intended, you're probably going to assume that those that got there first have already made the calls to police. So you're not going to bother yourself, whether you got your phone with you or not. So that would mean having a phone with you at that time wouldn't be as necessary. And you shouldn't be questioned that much. Especially if other people haven't brought the phones. Maybe. Because an unexpected event, you're not going to be as prepared. You might forget things. If you're in a rush, If you're in a rush, you're more likely to forget stuff. You haven't got as much time to think, to prepare yourself. If you're to catch a flight, catch a train somewhere, you might leave an item behind. You might forget a ticket. You might forget your scarf, a glove, even your phone. And then afterwards you're thinking, oh, damn it, I forgot. I was in a rush. I wasn't thinking clearly. I didn't have enough time to prepare. That can happen with mobile phones. It would be very unfortunate if that was the case, though, because it makes it harder to reinforce certain stories and events. But I do think I heard that Caden's phone data backed up what he was saying. Well, if it backs up what he's saying, then it would mean that likely Caden was in possession of his phone at the highway. But I'm just giving alternatives with what I publicly know of or lack as an alternative to try and make sense of it is a normal thing to leave your phone behind if you do go somewhere in a rush and it's like a shock, a sudden event. Is it as normal for Noah Presgrove, who has a brand new phone, to leave it at the party house when walking away? Don't you think he would take it with him? So Justin Roy's brought that up as well. What I would like to say in response is, if it's at least normal for Noah to wander off when drunk, as in previous parties, and people found that hard to believe when Jasmine Millan stated it, but people went a lot quieter when Caden Pressey separately, individually, backed up Jasmine Millan's claim that in the past, when Noah's drunk, he would walk off. He would walk away from the party. Okay, he distanced himself from people to cool down, to get things into perspective, maybe. But the next question, what I would ask, besides my previous one of, well, if it's normally a normal routine for Noah to wander off, to walk away, is it normally a routine for someone like Jasmine or another partygoer to do a Snapchat and say, well, Noah's missing? Does that normally happen as well? You got to look for those abnormalities. Now, if that's an abnormality, well, then you question it. But what about the theme or concept of walking away without his phone? Out of all of the times when Noah has walked away from a party to cool off, whether it be frustrated, mad, angry, or sad, when drunk, how often would he take his phone with him? If it was said that he would hardly take his phone with him when walking away because he intends on returning back anyway to collect his phone, well then, maybe it's the same situation here. It's just that Noah couldn't make it back because something bad happened to him. Right? If Noah normally takes his phone with him, well, this one event would be an abnormality and wouldn't quite make sense. If Noah was known to normally walk away and immediately take the phone with him, but on this occasion he didn't, does that mean that he actually walked away from the house by his own choice or not? Or he was taken out of the house outside and then dealt with? Could it be that Noah was more drunk this time or in a different mindset, so he didn't do the same patterns as what he normally would do? That's what you've got to try and work out. But you'd think as a counterpoint, if Noah Presgrove on this occasion has a brand new phone, wouldn't he be more caring about it, being in the presence of it? Well, you know what? I got a counterpoint to that. It's okay to say that, well, Noah Presgrove's got a new phone, and if he walks away from the party, which he supposedly did, and he left his phone behind, so we can't trace his phone ping location or phone data, that seems very odd. Noah would normally take it with him. Is that so? And especially if it's a brand new phone, you would take it with you because you don't want to leave it behind. Because are you going to trust people at that party to look after it? If those same said individuals may or may not have moved on to golf clubs and other stuff, a brand new phone, someone could take opportunity regarding it, couldn't they? Someone could get revenge on Noah if Noah had supposedly borrowed or stolen Jack Newton's key for the side-by-side. Maybe someone fought back with taking his phone. Now, his phone wasn't stolen. Let's just make that very clear. Of all things that could have been, or out of all things that may have disappeared, the hat, the shirt to an extent, depending if you trust that person online and their statement about retrieving it from Noah's mother, depending. But just in general, the shirt, the hat, the wallet, of course, the golf clubs, which have all disappeared with time. How come the one most important piece of evidence, the mobile phone, didn't disappear then? You get what I'm saying? Out of everything that could have gone missing, the most important piece didn't. If you put that into perspective. But my counterpoint is, besides, well, if it's a brand new phone, Noah would have took it with him because he wouldn't just leave it behind. It's a brand new phone. It could get lost. It could get stolen. It's valuable. But what did Noah do when he was in that side-by-side rollover earlier on? What did Noah do when he was getting slapped by Brylan outside of the party house? At what point was Noah in possession of his brand new phone? How often was he in possession of it at the party? And from the party footage, what we've seen, did we ever see footage or photos of him holding his phone up? No. So where was it? In his pocket? Really? Or was it left about? Because the more times it's left about and he's leaving it about somewhere, the more likely it is that he did the same when he walked away from the party house if he intended on returning back anyway. I mean, how casual is Noah Presgrove? How reckless is he? When it comes to personal items and possessions, is he very caring of them? Does he look after them? Does he take care? Or could he be a bit reckless, or more when he's drunk? Take in perspective when it came to a certain item which wasn't even his really, but they were passed on by Dalen Presgrove, his older brother, that gave Noah the golf clubs to be used for the right reasons, but Noah ended up using them for the wrong reasons at the party with Caden, etc. It doesn't matter now because the death is more important, but let's just say if Noah Presgrove was alive, nothing went wrong, if those clubs were returned back to Dalen, they'd be damaged, likely, wouldn't they? Dented, broken. And why? Because from what Caden said, because he was participating with Noah, they were using the clubs to smash all kinds of objects, hard and maybe soft. And if you're not using golf balls, but you're using everything else, that can harm the clubs. That recklessness. Someone has put their trust in you to look after them when borrowing them and to use them for the right reasons, but Noah has other ideas. This is not to criticize Noah or leading up to the death, but I'm just putting into perspective when Noah is in possession of an item or items, whether they be his or someone else's, does he take greater or lesser care of them? And from the golf clubs with a higher responsibility, he does not take care of them. So does he take care of himself? Does Noah take care of his phone or not? Because if he doesn't, well then that's probably why it was left behind. And then that leads to a loss in tracking traces and data and pings. I hope people get where I'm coming from. This is getting really deep, but it's also very important as well. I mean, it's like Noah Presgrove coming and going, leaving his shirt behind or maybe losing his hat at some point. Was that by choice? Was that by recklessness? Was it a carefree attitude of, oh man, I've lost some clothing. Never mind, I'll get it back after, or I'll buy a new one. What's Noah Presgrove like when he loses items or when an item becomes damaged? Does he take care? Does he react? Or is he not bothered? Is he not fazed? Or when he's drunk, how would he react? Could it be the same here with the phone? And what I want to say furthermore is, the side-by-side rollover, he may have got injured with his nose. Where was Noah's new mobile phone when he was in that side-by-side rollover? Was the phone in his pocket or was it at the party house? Do we know? We don't. But is there a supposed timestamp when it happened? Yeah. But that was because it was recorded by someone, another person nearby. No name mentioned. Unfortunately, Caden Pressey didn't mention the name. So who could it have been? Who could have been awake and present at the time of the side-by-side rollover? When Caden Pressey is asleep. Supposedly Brylan, Isaac and Mikey are asleep. Jack Newton, he's in bedtime mode, supposedly. But also awake, sleepwalking Jack. Back at it again. And then the girls. What other males, what other people are present to fill those seats, the passengers, which Jack has mentioned, and maybe some others, 5 to 6 passengers in the side-by-side rollover with Noah Presgrove too? How many more people at the party do we have to fill those seats when the remainder of guys are asleep, including Caden, and the girls are probably not likely to get their hands dirty in that vehicle? So what other males, who else is present? If there's only 10 to 15 people, we've ticked most of them off the list. And let alone an individual that recorded the side-by-side rollover, or at least the after effects of it, or when it just happened, were they a passenger themselves and then decided to record it? Or were they standing by anyway? And that adds another layers to another person present. But despite that, Kane and Pressy, when shown the side-by-side rollover, a timestamp overlay of it, and Noah injured, Caden did not mention anything about Noah's phone. Right? We don't really hear witnesses talk about, oh yeah, Noah Presgrove was on his phone at this time. Now, people say that Noah Presgrove tried contacting his father, Victor, at some point earlier on Sunday night time to reach out to his father, Victor, but Victor was with Caleb Newton drinking, supposedly, and Victor refused to give Noah a lift back home. Is that so? So, let me just mention one thing. People could say, well, if Victor actually listened to Noah and gave Noah a lift home, then it would be all okay. It probably just delay the inevitable for as long as Noah spends time around certain said individuals. But what I want to say further is, even if Victor considered taking Noah home at that time, if Victor was out drinking with someone, would Victor have been able to get back home, or at least get to the party to give Noah a lift home if one had been drinking? If people from the party are incapable of giving Noah a lift home because of drinking and safety reasons and concerns and trying to avoid getting in trouble, then wouldn't the same happen to Victor? So the moment you're engaging in an activity which kind of incapacitates you, you can't take someone's offer up, even if they really want it, even if they really need it. You just can't, because you've drunk too much. Well, how do you get back home? That's a good point, that. I don't know. And I don't know the distance from where it took place, the drinking, possibly with Caleb, and where one lives. If it's close by, you could walk. If it's much further away, you probably need a taxi of some sort. But how did you get there in the first place? What, you leave your vehicle there at the place, and then you got to come and collect it at a later day because you're too drunk to drive it back home? Yeah, it's just a bit complex, the logistics behind it. But Noah Presgrove, you got to ask yourself, right? Out of all the times at the party, and more so Sunday going into Monday, how often did people use their mobile phones? Okay, there's social media posts, Snapchats and video clips of this and that, broken up, fragmented. But when you see from the perspective of Caden Pressy sat down recording the people in the dining or kitchen area, most of them appear to be without their phones. So where are they? In the pockets, maybe? Like, you could say, well, people nowadays are glued to their phones like zombies. And yet the party footage, what we saw, besides it being 99.9% positive, which is maybe hard to believe by some, but most of the partygoers didn't look that drunk or that past it, not that vulnerable, but also they weren't glued to the phones. They were actually talking, dancing or singing. They might have had a drink in their hand. They might have been drinking underage, but besides that, they weren't glued to their phone like zombies. So you've got to understand and measure the levels of activity of phone usage. And how often did Noah use his phone on a Sunday or Monday? At the end of the day, as long as a device, a mobile phone, is turned on, and maybe the location services or other background apps are on, doesn't matter if you use your phone a lot or just a little, as long as the phone is on and it's in possession of you, it can trace where you are and maybe your steps and maybe distance, location, roughly, and beyond. I guess that's what people keep talking about, the Life 360 app. I've never heard of it before, but it's been said that these partygoers have that. But I think you don't need the Life 360 app. You can have other apps. You can have the weather app, and that can do the phone ping data and more. How do I know? Because it just happens to link back to the Dylan Rounds case. Dylan Rounds wasn't glued to phones. Dylan Rounds wasn't glued to social media. Dylan was all about farming and hard work. Even Memorial Day weekend, the party, a barbecue at Montello, Nevada, invited. Noah turned it down. 19-year-old would rather do farm work, hard work on the day of celebration whilst others are eating. He does his own thing. Someone like him could be an exception. Hard working. But what I'm getting at is, even though Dylan Rounds was not an avid phone user, he had it on him. He had his phone turned on. He had the weather app open at some point and then some others on his phone, meaning it traced and tracked where he was and phone pings at certain points. So even if you don't use your phone that much at all, but you've got it on, it can still be very valuable. But with the Noah Presgrove case, how many of those party goers actually had their phones turned on, and how many of them had their phones with them at certain times and moments? Even with Noah Presgrove, whilst maybe Noah didn't take his phone with him when he walked away, supposedly, did Noah Presgrove have the phone on him when he had the side-by-side rollover? Did Noah Presgrove have the phone on him when having the shower, or at least getting to the shower and then taking it out of his pocket, right? You don't be using your phone in the shower, it could get wet. And then this sleeping bedroom debacle, did Noah Presgrove have the phone on him then? At what point did Noah put the phone down and walk away from it? Right at the end of when he was about to walk away to cool off, or much earlier on? You get what I'm saying? Once again, all these deeper questions, side factors you need to look at. You know, as for Colton, Travis Monson and a skinny guy returning back to the party Sunday night or Monday morning early, Caden witnessed it. No time given, but Caden witnessed it. If only we had the timestamps or phone pings of the three guys at a certain time, specifically, and the location as to where they came from and where they went afterwards, and whether it crossed paths with Noah or not. See, the exception with certain events is you might not have the phone ping data, or you may not need it because you've got actual video recorded footage of an event. And that is limited, as we know. And others may have been deleted or not publicly viewable. But even a video recording is good enough because it can give original timestamp, and anyone within the frame or shot or in the background audio-wise, you'll be able to detect and say, well, there you go. That's where they were. That's what they were doing. Simple as. A phone ping can do the same thing. When you haven't got both or either, you're in the shits. Or at least it makes it harder for people maybe researching the case, trying to figure stuff out. And you know what? Besides Jack Newton's phone pinging at the highway and the obsession there, besides Caden pressing the questioning of whether he had his phone with him or not at the highway, what about some of the other party goers? Maybe at the time of when they went out searching about. Justin Roy highlighted the Life 360 app, or the geofencing of some sort comes into play. And people changed up about saying that they were searching when before they weren't, or they didn't highlight it. But you know, one particular individual, one particular person that's gone under the radar but supposedly was at the party, and supposedly there is proof of it, and I might need to do a standalone video about it, is Stephanie Millan. There'll be counterpoints. Why do we need to focus on Stephanie Millan? Well, because they're not talked about at all. It's like they were never there. They were a ghost. But they were supposedly there. They said that they were there themselves. What? So at what point did Stephanie Millan leave the party if it's Caden who said at around 6:30 a.m. onwards, the mother, Renee, came on down because of Jasmine calling the mother at 5:45 to something in the morning, or roughly, and Renee coming on down? Because Kane said Renee came down with her husband and a daughter, Stephanie, and Stephanie's boyfriend too. So Stephanie Millan, who was at the party earlier, left at some point to then come back later with the news of Noah's death. So why did Stephanie leave but Jasmine remain? If they're together, do they come as a pair? Do they leave as a pair? Not from the looks of it. So that's its own little problem as well. But Stephanie Millan, supposedly at the party, never gets really talked about. No mentions of phone pings or where they were at certain points. What's that all about? But why are we so critical of Jack Newton or Caden? Is it because they put themselves out there more in different ways? They're a bit more vocal than others. So there's more room for criticism, skepticism, and more questioning. And then the other party goes that just kept quiet, playing tactical or not. Well, they get a free pass. Kind of unfortunate and unfair in a way. Because what phone pings could be revealed as for the other party goers and what they were doing. You know, another particular event which would have been crucial if they were in possession at the time of the phones. Between 2:42 and 5:15, at the time of when Caden woke up at 2:42, went to sleep at 2 in the morning, woken up 42 minutes later because of Alicia calling about the cousin making it back safely. Brylan, I think it is. Well, it's Mikey Lair and I think Isaac Rojas. Definitely Mikey and possibly Isaac Rojas that was sleeping. One was on the floor, the other one was on a piece of furniture. And Caden noted that at 2:42 when woken up. But when woken up the next time at 5:15 hours later, Mikey and Isaac switched places. So both maybe waking up and saying, right, we need to switch places, or both waking up, or one waking up the other to then go and do something, whatever that is, and then return back to sleeping. Or one waking up and telling the other, can you sleep on the floor now? I want to sleep on the furniture. My back's aching. Why would there be the only exception there? Why did Noah Presgrove not wake up Saturday night or Sunday night or whatever Saturday night, went on the floor and said, oh, can I sleep in the bedroom? Can I sleep in the bed, please? I've had enough. No one else seemed to, so why would it only be between Mikey and Isaac? Bit of an anomaly there, isn't it? But what I'm getting at is the switched places. So they must have both physically woken up or woken one another up and then moved about, whether it was just the sleeping arrangements or they actually went on to do something else. The only way to really know would be to look at their phone pings and data as to their movements and whereabouts and the timing of it. But we don't have that, supposedly. It's unfortunate. But you see these particular events, the events which weren't physically documented or recorded via phone camera, the events which weren't picked up by CCTV cameras because they weren't working, the only other thing you could have would be the phone ping data. But do we have that? Yes or no? It would clear up a lot more. I hope I've made it clear enough. You can leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. But as for Jack Newton, we're not quite finished with him yet. Up to now, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I do understand it's a long one, but there's a lot to talk about, and I just want to explain it, just in case anyone's a bit confused. These could have been standalone videos, but I had no clue how long the videos would be individually. So I thought I'll just piece it all together. I just hope it's good enough and it's not too convoluted. I said I might have to adjust the title so it's a lot clearer and easier to follow. If anyone wants to provide timestamps down below for different chapters from where we go to and talk about, that's appreciated. YouTube normally automatically does it themselves, but it can take quite some time for it to actually take effect on my videos. And it might take a bit too long. But when I said about we're not finished with Jack, what I'm getting at is when it comes to the distribution and the sources of information, is Jack in two places at once? Jack claims to be asleep for most part of it, but also knows a lot. How can you know a lot when you weren't there to experience it? Well, quite simple. Somebody else relayed the information onto you. Okay, who's that? Carter Combs. Yeah, but Carter Combs was who you claimed to be asleep with. So how would she know that? Oh, because she told somebody? Fucking hell, how many people are in that bedroom altogether? Oh, that person was asleep, but the other person passed it on, but they were asleep. Someone before them passed it on. That person was asleep, someone else passed it on. Is this the human centipede of Oklahoma? Oh my goodness, I need cleansing. No, it's not quite like that. I guess the example with Carter Combs more so was when, supposedly they were asleep, Carter was woken up by Noah walking in to get the key. Carter did not wake Jack up. Why is that? Surely the girlfriend would wake the boyfriend up. If a friend, a best friend, decided to steal one of the keys, you'd want to let Jack know what's happened, unless Carter felt there was no need, there was no point. But Carter was also present during the shower. So if Carter's asleep with Jack and Jack's saying he's asleep at the time of all this unfolding, and Jack is saying that Carter's with him, but Carter herself is at the shower at a later point, I guess it could be true to an extent that they're asleep up to a certain point, but Carter wakes up because of Noah. Carter doesn't go back to sleep, but gets up, leaving Jack behind. But why? Carter couldn't sleep, wanted to meet up with others, talk and see what was going on. Who knows? But can't be in two places at once, right? Unless you're asleep, but you're walking. Do we have Jack sleepwalking Newton? there might be an extra title to add on to that, and that is Jack the Sleepwalking Magician Newton. And how does that come about? Well, with the white shorts, how they magically appear on the roadway. Now, some people said they magically appeared folded. Oh, are you saying that Jack Newton came along down the highway or the yellow brick road, got the little wand out, waved it, boom, I summon my white shorts, clean sheets to fold themselves upon the highway and cast the spell? Not quite with that, because they were found in the middle of the road. They weren't folded at that point. They were folded later when Jack was at the scene. Jack collected the shorts from the middle of the road whilst there was a police guy present, but the police guy did not tell Jack to do that. Jack did it himself, which is reckless, isn't it? Jack then attempted to fold the shorts and put them in the back of his own vehicle. Then the police guy said, no, place them by the side of the body and fold them. A lot of handling. Should have been left as they were in the natural position they were found at. But still, Jack's white shorts, borrowed by Noah maybe, even though Noah was wearing black shorts at the highway when Caden saw him at 5:21 a.m. onwards. But still, Jack Newton's white shorts magically appeared on the highway. Magic spells all around. Just like how I obtained this hat out of nowhere, pulled it out of thin air. I actually borrowed it from Cleo. So, big shout out to Cleo for her wizardry or witch-like material and items. I will return this witch hat back to her in just a second. Okay, there is that witch emoji hat as well. No, this is not because I've got a bad hair day. I just thought I'd use it on the spot. So there you go, Cleo. You can have it back. Returned. Unlike other clothing, isn't that right? Certain clothing just disappears, never to be seen again. I've got something in my bloody eye now. Great. Must be when I was moving that hat. There we go. Sometimes when you blink enough, it sends a message to the bloody eyes to get that shit out. So I think it's gone now. But to return back to the sources of information and where it came from and how it was passed on. When you got the likes of Brooke Bounds-Carter, who wasn't even in the country at the time. That's not useful, is it? And then Stevie Howard, not even in that state, more so in Texas at the time. Well, that's great. And yet those two individuals do a lot of talking and others call them the mouthpieces. Speaking on behalf of someone else, as they've said themselves. Sarah Long as well. Well, from what I think, from what I can remember, I think that's what this person said. I think that's what Jack said. So basically, Sarah, Stevie, and Brooke mention a lot, and quite a bit of it is influenced from what Jack has said, from what Jack has told them. It still could be important because Jack may tell them stuff which Jack doesn't tell the general public. So you can't discredit everything, but when you got people who aren't even in the area at the time, didn't attend the party, may have not been in the country, or may have not been in the same state, and they're then listening to what Jack says, in which Jack could say things he wants people to believe in, and it may not be 100% true. You never know, just like with any other case out there. Then the mouthpieces say what they say, coming across as experts, but really they're not. They're just being told something and they're agreeing with it, which is a conflict of interest because they're more likely to nod their heads and not question because of being close to Jack or related in some way. So the conflict of interest does get in the way of stuff. As for Jack Newton himself, who may not know everything firsthand because he may have not seen everything firsthand, but he was told it by somebody else, Jack isn't the only one. Caden Pressey is another example because Caden was supposedly actually asleep. And it's what Caden was shown at a later point, a different day, by another guy that recorded or timestamped the rollover, which Caden was shown, not firsthand, but through hard evidence. Okay. Or when Caden Pressey made a reference in the private interview in regards to being told by Jasmine Millan at a later time on Monday as to Noah walking away between 2 to 3 in the morning, before 3:30. So does that mean 2 separate occasions of Noah walking away in a small time between one another? Who knows? But there was some additional references made which Caden acknowledged or someone else, but it wasn't by seeing it firsthand or knowing it directly at the time. It was what they were told later by another party goer. So there is a chain of that. But the issue is the source isn't always given. It's okay, Stevie or Sarah or Brooke saying, well, from what I think of, from what I can remember, from what Jack said, is it even Jack saying it, or is Jack another person passing it on? Is it a constant food chain where you got to look back to the true source, the true horse's mouth, who it actually came from? Is there a pattern where someone like Jack doesn't reveal his sources the same way as others do? Why would that be the case? Why would you quote someone else? And this can apply to those on Facebook in the community as well. From what I've been told from an expert, from someone I know of, from a local I know of, you don't give your sources, but you expect people to believe in it. Not good enough. And that can apply to partygoers. It can apply to people online. But could possibilities with certain people, whether that applies to Jack or others, the reason why the original source and horse's mouth is not given, but the context, the contents are roughly, is because you're protecting the person responsible. You're protecting someone because you care about them. You're protecting someone because you're threatened or you're scared. Or what you're protecting is actually indirectly yourself. Because when you refer to a source or from what someone knows, from what someone has said, you're actually talking in third person, describing yourself. And that's why you can't reveal the source, because you'd be revealing yourself. Different ways of looking at it. It's like a bit off subject, but when it comes to the highway and the scene, certain things don't quite link up to a hit and run, like shorts in the middle of the road. Decent quality as well. Shorts in the middle of the road, not ripped, not torn, not caught on a vehicle, just in the middle of the road and nowhere on the side. That is a bit odd. And there were additional features or more that could be reinforced to suggest it's less of a hit and run and more of some alternative foul play. Yet the opposition never seemed to acknowledge or take that into account. But is that because subconsciously that if they did, they're actually doing themselves not so much a favour, that subconsciously admitting to the actual reality, which they don't want to, but unconsciously to everybody else, wouldn't quite know. But still, don't want to acknowledge or accept it or even consider it because you may know it to be the reality, or you may feel like you're conceding and accepting responsibility even if it's not shown publicly outwards, but it's the following steps in breaking down or cracking. There's many ways of looking at it, but besides the sources and the unexpectedness and Jack Newton, how he might have been told this or that, but we may not always hear the named individuals. There might be some exceptions. You can always correct it below if needed, and apologies if anything was slightly adjusted incorrectly, but this is from here and no notes whatsoever. It just goes with the flow. But like with the shorts and some other items and sleepwalking and knowing this or knowing that, you piece it together. Sleepwalking, the magician, Jack just going to magically spell or create something to turn into something else. Going to magically create the black shorts to disappear off Noah's body elsewhere, to in possession of someone, to then replace him with the white shorts, whether you're there or not at the time, concocting some mysterious spell and magic. It's like the equivalent of me. If I'm present right now, I've got a strawberry in front of me. Where did this come from? I don't know. But as you can see, just as an example, this strawberry is shimmering, shiny. It glows, candescent with the light above as the night sky is outside. You see all the little pips and little blops and everything. But at the end of the day, when you touch it, it's really smooth and soft. The texture, most likely inside as well. But if I was to do like a magic spell in the name of Jack Newton, what's going to happen? We're going to get the same results? I don't think so, because this is reality. But so you got the strawberry hair, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to do a magic spell and turn it into something else, which it isn't. How do you do that? You just kiss it or something like this? Has it changed? Has it transformed? Maybe I need to do it a few more times. Maybe I need to look through the spell book of Jack's collection to really get an understanding of what's going on. I need to bump my ass. I need to get pissed Jack off, and then maybe I can connect a little bit better. Let me try it one more time, okay? I've got to make the lips wet as well. Come on, we got to do a magic trick. We got to turn it into something else, which it's not, to change the story, to change the narrative. Let me try one more time. It's not going to change. Reality is, it is what it is. But it could be covered up by alternatives. See, at the end of the day, this strawberry will not change, nor does it need to, because it likely is full of flavour. It's probably juicy. I'll nibble the tip of it. As you can see, it's very good. And no matter how many times you kiss it, it will not change because it's perfect as it is. But is this case perfect? Are the people within it perfect? Are the stories and recollections perfect? No. So there are limitations along the way. Can it be adjusted? Can it be changed? Could it be manipulated? Yeah, to benefit someone or themselves. I know this video has gone deep. The overall themes are my predictions, which can help people along the way. If you have joined late to this video, like right now, be sure to rewind back. I'll give you just a brief summary and conclusion. Done an analysis of predictions, what to expect next and what could follow based off historical records and patterns and trends and my own knowledge from the past. Make use of it, it might help. Second is the importance of phone pings, the complications behind it and the limitations and how you apply it visually. Noah's patterns, whereabouts, his routines, his abnormalities. Is he caring of his brand new phone, or could he be reckless from time to time? And at what point did he actually use it? At what point was it on him? Was it during the side-by-side rollover? Was it beyond? Was it before? And how often did other partygoers use their phones? And how often did they have them on them at all times? Because that would be an important play. And then the final factor being the measurement of sources, the names, identities revealed. Is it lacking? Yes, at times. But why? To protect someone, to protect themselves, privacy reasons. Could change with time. But I just hope that this video does get a bit more awareness, because the last one didn't, and that was important. This one, even more, based off the table of contents. So be sure to hit the like button, share the video to spread that awareness. I will finish this off. There we go. A bit tarty. Bloody hell, that's a bit tarty, that. It's making my face tingle slightly. Wasn't anticipating it, but, you know, many surprises. With that being said, I'll see you next time. My name's WarLike Wrath. The next video could be a Noah Presgrove one. And if it isn't, probably going to be Kenny Veach. I'm going to try and work on those in the meantime. Goodbye. Good night for now.